Everyone, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Mrs. Gould. I'm here. Mr. Thompson.
Present.
Mr. Cabrera.
I am here. Compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975. The notice requirements have been satisfied as to time, place, and date of holding said meeting by posting notice on the bulletin board here in Borough Hall and by mailing and emailing same to the Herald of Cape May County and the Press of Atlantic City on October 28, 2020. In the event of an emergency exit, your way out is your back right, the same way you come in, or your front left, or our front right. A couple quick announcements. This meeting is maxed out at an occupancy of 33 people pursuant to Executive Order 219. I'm just going to count real quick and make sure you do a count here what we have. 1, 2, 3. Madam Clerk confirms we have 17 here in attendance, or just a little over 50% of what we're permitted. All right, this meeting is also being shown live on YouTube and also on Facebook. If you want to make a comment, you're going to do that through our conference line, or you can make a comment for anyone that's here in person. If you're going to call the conference line, you're going to dial 888-363-4734, and when prompted, you're going to enter the access code 969-9020. And in the event that you're not able to call in, or you're not here, you're always welcome to email our clerk at wildwoodcrest.org, or call 609-729-8040. Madam Clerk, may we have the ordinances, please?
Yes, sir. The first is number ordinance 1347 regarding golf carts and motorcycle parking.
I move that ordinance 1347 be placed on second reading and final passage by title only.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded that ordinance number 1347 be placed on second and final reading by title only.
Roll call. Mrs. Gould.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Cabrera.
Yes.
Ordinance 1347 reads as follows. An ordinance amending and supplementing Chapter 79, Vehicles and Traffic, permitting the parking of golf carts and motorcycles in specified parking spaces and time periods.
I move that a public hearing now be held on ordinance 1347.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded that a public hearing on ordinance number 1347 now be held.
Roll call. Mrs. Gould.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Cabrera.
Yes.
Hearing no comments from the public, I move that the public hearing on ordinance 1347 now be closed.
Second?
Been moved and seconded that the public hearing on ordinance number 1347 now be closed.
Roll call. Mrs. Gould.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Cabrera.
Yes.
I move that ordinance 1347 be passed on second and final reading and advertised according to law.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded that ordinance number 1347 be passed on second and final reading and advertised according to law.
Roll call. Mrs. Gould.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Cabrera.
Yes.
Next, we have ordinance 1348 regarding taxi cabs.
I move that ordinance 1348 be placed on second reading and final passage by title only.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded that ordinance number 1348 be placed on second and final reading by title only.
Roll call. Mrs. Gould.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Cabrera.
Yes.
Ordinance 1348 reads as follows. An ordinance of the Borough of Wildwood Crest amending Chapter 73, Taxi Cabs, regarding the licensing and regulation of taxi cabs in the Borough of Wildwood Crest.
I move that a public hearing now be held on ordinance 1348.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded that a public hearing on ordinance number 1348 now be held.
Roll call. Mrs. Gould.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Cabrera.
Yes.
Hearing no comments from the public, I move that the public hearing on ordinance 1348 now be closed.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded that the public hearing on ordinance number 1348 now be closed.
Roll call. Mrs. Gould.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Cabrera.
Yes.
I move that ordinance 1348 be passed on second and final reading and advertised according to law.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded that ordinance number 1348 be passed on second and final reading and advertised according to law.
Roll call, Mrs. Gould.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Cabrera?
Yes.
Next, we have ordinance 1349, and it's regarding Chapter 66, Stormwater Control.
I move that ordinance 1349 be placed on second reading and final passage by title only.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that ordinance number 1349 be placed on second and final reading by title only.
Roll call, Mrs. Gould.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Cabrera?
Yes.
Ordinance 1349 reads as follows. An ordinance supplementing and replacing Chapter 66, Stormwater Control of the Code of the Borough of Wildwood Crest.
I move that a public hearing now be held on ordinance 1349.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that a public hearing on ordinance number 1349 now be held.
Roll call, Mrs. Gould.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Cabrera?
Yes.
Hearing no comments from the public, I move that the public hearing on ordinance 1349 now be closed.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that the public hearing on ordinance number 1349 now be closed.
Roll call, Mrs. Gould.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Cabrera?
Yes.
I move that ordinance 1349 be passed on second and final reading and advertised according to law.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that ordinance number 1349 be passed on second and final reading and advertised according to law.
Roll call, Mrs. Gould.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Cabrera?
Yes.
Next, we have ordinance 1350 regarding recreation fees.
I move that ordinance 1350 be placed on second reading and final passage by title only.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that ordinance number 1350 be placed on second and final reading by title only.
Roll call, Mrs. Gould.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Cabrera?
Yes.
Ordinance 1350 reads as follows. An ordinance amending and supplementing Chapter 56 of the Code of the Borough of Wildwood Crest, entitled Recreation Commission, Section 56-3, approving and confirming rates and fees for the rental of facilities, participation in certain events and activities.
I move that a public hearing now be held on ordinance number 1350.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that a public hearing on ordinance number 1350 now be held.
Roll call, Mrs. Gould.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Cabrera?
Yes.
I move that the public hearing on ordinance 1350 now be closed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the public hearing on ordinance number 1350 now be closed.
Roll call, Mrs. Gould.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Cabrera?
Yes.
I move ordinance 1350 be passed on second and final reading and advertised according to law.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that ordinance number 1350 be passed on second and final reading and advertised according to law.
Roll call, Mrs. Gould.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Cabrera?
Yes.
And for the budget, I am required to read the introduced budget in full. And it was Resolution 21-89, and it reads as follows. A resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the Borough of Wildwood Crest authorizing introduction of local budget of the Borough of Wildwood Crest, County of Cape May, New Jersey, for the fiscal year 2021. Be it resolved by the Board of Commissioners of the Borough of Wildwood Crest in the County of Cape May, New Jersey, that the following statements of revenue and appropriations shall constitute the local budget for the year 2021. Be it further resolved that said budget be published in the Cape May County Herald issue of March 3rd, 2021. Be it further resolved that notice is hereby given that the budget and tax resolution were approved by the Board of Commissioners of the Borough of Wildwood Crest, County of Cape May, New Jersey, on February 24th, 2021. Be it further resolved that a hearing on the budget and tax resolution will be held on Wednesday, March 31st, 2021, at 5:30 p.m. in the Municipal Courtroom, Borough Hall, 6101 Pacific Avenue, Wildwood Crest, New Jersey, at which time and place objections to said budget and tax resolution for the year 2021 may be presented by taxpayers and other interested persons. And with that, we have the first resolution is authorizing self-examination by the Borough of the 2021 municipal budget pursuant to NJAC 5:30-7.2 through 7.5.
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the foregoing resolution be adopted. Roll call. Mrs. Gould.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Cabrera.
Yes.
Next is authorizing the 2021 municipal budget be read by title and that a public hearing be held on the 2021 municipal budget.
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the foregoing resolution be adopted. Roll call. Mrs. Gould.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Cabrera.
Yes. Okay. Leads us to the public hearing on our budget. We have with us here today Mike Garcia, our auditor from Fort Scott, and our CFO, Francine Springer. Anybody have any questions? Or if not, we're going to proceed with, I believe Mike has some comments he wants to make here this evening with respect to the 2021 budget, and then we can take any questions from there. Anybody have any questions? All right, Mike, why don't you go ahead with your presentation?
Sure, Mayor. The budget comes in with a slight increase in the local purpose tax rate. That increase is 0.3 cents, which amounts to $3 per year on the $100,000 assessment. The average assessment in the borough is about $425,000, so the increase is just under $13 per year on your average assessment. The borough is required to be in compliance with the 2 state-imposed budget caps. The first one is the 2% tax levy cap. This budget comes in $355,000 below the current year 2%. Also, when you include the levy cap banks from prior years, the fact that the borough was below the cap in prior years, we're actually $1.2 million below the maximum tax levy for 2021. We are also required to stay in compliance with the 3.5% spending cap. This budget is $988,000 below that spending cap. So once again, to recap, we're below both of the required caps. There is a slight tax increase of 0.3 cents.
Mr. John.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Floor is open for any public comments with respect to the 2021 budget.
You can see that both the CFO, working alongside with our auditor, has done an excellent job. Francine does a wonderful job. Fort Scott does a wonderful job with us. I have been with them for 24 years in this borough, and we've never had any problems. So congratulations to both of you, and thank you.
Thank you for your support as well.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
David Williams, 8107, New Jersey. Just a question, 988,000 that we're under the cap, that's on what kind of base?
The
If
base?
we were fully,
Yeah.
the budget would be how many millions versus what it is?
The amount is about $16 million. So the portion of the budget that is subject to the cap, to the spending cap, is $16 million. So we could theoretically have spent another almost million to make it 17 million. So 16 million is the base, and we're 988,000 below that $16 million number.
Is it 16 could become 17, or 16 is 15?
No, we're at 16. We could have gone as high as 17.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Is there anybody on the call that has any questions with respect to the 2021 budget on the conference line? Hearing none, I would also like to echo Mrs. Gould's comments with respect to Francine and Michael, but also want to pass on an appreciation to all of our department heads for working and cooperating when it's time to make necessary cuts, and administration has to say no to certain things. It's not always easy, but we appreciate the cooperation, and the result is good to say that 2021 is a good year. Remember, we came off of a pandemic last year. We're still going into it. Wildwood Crest is still healthy and strong. Okay.
We want to keep it that way. I move that the public hearing on the 2021 municipal budget now be closed.
Sorry?
It has been moved and seconded that the public hearing on calendar year 2021 municipal budget now be closed. Roll call. Mrs. Gould?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Cabrera?
Yes.
Do you want me to adopt the budget first, or do you want to take a second?
Go ahead.
Go ahead. The next is authorizing adoption of the calendar year 2021 municipal budget, inclusive of $15,895,188.35 for municipal purposes be adopted.
So moved.
Second?
It has been moved and seconded that the foregoing resolution be adopted. Roll call. Mrs. Gould?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Cabrera?
Yes. Okay, on that note,
Mr. Garcia, thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Always good to see you, so thank you.
You got it. Nice job.
Team, how you going?
Just going to sit down.
You know, I didn't miss Mr. Mark.
Ready? Okay. Next is authorizing the submission of a grant application to the New Jersey Division Highway Traffic Safety Mobilization 2021 Click It or Ticket Grant.
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the foregoing resolution be adopted. Roll call. Mrs. Gould?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Cabrera?
Yes.
Next is authorizing Borough Engineer work order for Beach Street End Public Access Improvements Phase 1 additional services, Pittsburgh Avenue and Preston Avenue water main improvements at the not to exceed sum of $18,000.
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the foregoing resolution be adopted. Roll call. Mrs. Gould?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Cabrera?
Yes.
Next is authorizing increase of contract in the amount of $47,000 to Home Depot for beach walkway lumber.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the foregoing resolution be adopted. Roll call. Mrs. Gould?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Cabrera?
Yes.
Next is authorizing expenditure to purchase beach boxes for the beach under state contract.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the foregoing resolution be adopted. Roll call. Mrs. Gould?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Cabrera?
Yes.
Next is authorizing a licensing agreement between the Borough of Wildwood Crest and the Wildwood Beach Patrol for the use of the Joseph Von Savage Pool.
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the foregoing resolution be adopted. Roll call. Mrs. Gould?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Cabrera?
Yes.
Next is authorizing membership in a mutual aid and assistance agreement with other Cape May County participating units.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the foregoing resolution be adopted. Roll call. Mrs. Gould?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Cabrera?
Yes.
Next is authorizing Borough Engineer work order for the old library improvements at the not to exceed sum of $120,000.
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the foregoing resolution be adopted. Roll call. Mrs. Gould?
No.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Cabrera?
Yes.
Next is authorizing expenditure to MRC to purchase interlocking tiles under state contract number 16-fleet-00121 for playground interlocking tiles.
So moved.
Second.
I didn't make that title. Okay, it has been moved and seconded that the foregoing resolution be adopted. Roll call. Mrs. Gould?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Cabrera?
Yes.
Next is authorizing award of contract for Beach Street End Public Access Improvements Phase 1.
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the foregoing resolution be adopted. Roll call. Mrs. Gould?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Cabrera?
Yes.
Next is authorizing approval of change order number 2, 2019 Road Improvement Program, various streets, and fiscal year 2019 NJDOT Municipal Aid Program, reconstruction of Trenton Avenue from the beach to Pacific Avenue, to reflect additional work at Sunrise Park to include installation of foot wash stations, landscaping, and sod restoration at the not to exceed sum of $59,025.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the foregoing resolution be adopted. Roll call. Mrs. Gould?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Cabrera?
Yes.
Next is supporting the 2021 You Drive, You Text, You Pay distracted driving crackdown from April 1 through April 30th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the foregoing resolution be adopted. Roll call. Mrs. Gould?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Cabrera?
Yes.
Next is directing the Wildwood Crest Planning Board to conduct a preliminary investigation report for a redevelopment area.
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the foregoing resolution be adopted. Roll call. Mrs. Gould?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Cabrera?
Yes.
And I believe we have an add-on that was
Yes.
requested, sir?
Yes, if you can add the number 16, the distracted driving crackdown grant.
Sure. The title shall be authorizing the chief financial officer to pay a flat rate of $60 per hour to law enforcement pursuant to the 2021 Distracted Driving Crackdown Grant. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the foregoing resolution be adopted. Roll call. Mrs. Gould?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Cabrera?
Yes.
I move that all bills properly authorized as submitted be paid.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that all bills properly authorized as submitted be paid. Roll call, Mrs. Gould.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Cabrera?
Yes.
I move that all reports received from the court administrator, chief financial officer, tax collector, chief of police, supervisor for the recreation department, construction official, emergency services coordinator for the EMS and the Wildwood Crest Volunteer Fire Company chief for the month ending February 28, 2021 be accepted as presented.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded that all reports received from the court administrator, chief financial officer, tax collector, chief of police, supervisor for the recreation department, construction official, emergency services coordinator for the EMS, and the Wildwood Crest Volunteer Fire Company chief for the month ending February 28, 2021 be accepted as presented. Roll call, Mrs. Gould.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Cabrera?
Yes.
I move that all minutes from the regularly scheduled commission meeting dated February 24, 2021, March 17, 2021, as well as the closed session minutes dated September 4, 2019, and March 11, 2020 be approved as presented.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded that all minutes from the regularly scheduled commission meetings dated February 24th and March 17th, 2021, as well as the closed session minutes dated September 4th, 2019, and March 11th, 2020 be approved as presented. Roll call, Mrs. Gould.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Cabrera?
Yes. Okay, before we move on to the administrator's report, I have a question for our chief. Under resolution number 14, you drive, you text, you pay. Does that cover if you speech to text as well, or just strictly finger?
If you're using a hands-free device, that doesn't count. So if you're using a Bluetooth device, hands-free, then that doesn't count. But if you're taking your attention away from the road to look at a phone or to use a phone or any other device, then that would be considered distracted driving.
Gotcha.
Which means if you're on the Garden State Parkway and you're only going 30 miles an hour, you're texting. Because
Well,
we've seen that happen
you're really
so
going
many
up 30.
times. Well, they do that. They forget what they're doing, and you're trying to pass, you're trying to drive, and it's impossible. So there.
If I may, since we're talking about
Sure.
it, I just want to let the residents and visitors of Wildwood Crest know that April 1st through the 30th, the Wildwood Crest Police Department will be taking part in the Highway Traffic Safety Mobilization Distracted Driving Grant. We will have patrols out looking for distracted drivers. That's going to include anyone who's texting, using a cell phone, eating or drinking, talking to passengers where they have to turn their attention away from the road to turn and talk to other people in the car, grooming, reading, using navigation systems, watching videos, adjusting radios, anything that takes your attention away from the road. That could be considered distracted driving, and we will be out looking for these behaviors and these violations. So please be aware of that, and officers will be stopping and issuing summonses for those.
That's for the month of April?
Yes, sir.
Starting tomorrow.
Okay,
Yes.
so here's how we drive, right?
That's every man I know is like this and like this. I mean, they're never like straight on, so.
Only when we're responding to our wives and the passengers.
Yes, dear.
Don't let it go.
Yes, dear.
Yeah.
The idea is that everybody drives safely, and that's what we want.
Okey-dokey.
Thank you, Chief. All right,
Honey.
Constance, administrator's report, please.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, everyone. A quick COVID update. I continue to participate each Wednesday in the weekly COVID task force calls for Cape May County. We still only have one vaccination site here in Cape May County at this time. That's due to the small number of doses that we receive here in the county weekly. That's about 1,000 doses. We understand everyone's frustration with the pace of getting vaccinated. However, there is good news this week. Yesterday, 31,000 appointments were made available at the Atlantic City Convention mega site due to an increased number of sites or vaccinations available to that particular site. This site also serves all Cape May County residents, and to get an appointment at this site, you must register on Atlantic Care's website at www.atlanticcare.org. If anybody needs more information on how to do that or help, please feel free to see me. I'd be glad to do so. There are a lot of appointments available, and it's a much more expedited way of getting a shot, even though you do have to leave the county to do so. Reporting on upcoming projects, our Beach End Bump Out project has been awarded this evening. It will provide better ADA access and amenities at our street ends, such as showers, which are highly coveted. So that's going to cover almost all of the beach access points with some exceptions. We're hoping that the second phase of the project will be partially funded with a grant that we applied for $400,000 for fiscal year 2021 DCA. And that will be successful in our efforts next month before the Cape May County Open Spaces Board in their special funding round for coastal recreation improvements. We're going to go to them to pay for a big portion of this project as well. Our presentation was scheduled for this month, but we did move it back a month because we were waiting for our CAFA permit, which we now have in hand. That was a long time coming, and I thank Mark for all his efforts in that. It was a Herculean effort to get that across the finish line, and we finally did. These bump outs are going to be modeled after the new Rambler Street end, which has been highly successful. It includes showers, trash receptacles, bike racks, and we've talked about drinking fountains, but I don't know that that will come to fruition, but lots of great amenities, and I think they'll be really enjoyed by everyone, including our residents and visitors. Pacific Avenue stormwater and sanitary sewer improvements have been underway since Labor Day, and they're going to be wrapping up late this spring. The goal of this project was to replace the dated sewer infrastructure and improve drainage capacity along Pacific Avenue. That's been a complaint we've heard a lot, and we've addressed those concerns through this project. A big portion of this project is completed, which means that the county will be able to come in, hopefully this fall, to reconstruct the roadway. There is a slight snag with that because it is a federally funded project, and the county is currently working towards resolving that matter. The Scoop Taylor ADA improvement project will commence shortly. Due to long lead times, this project will be phased into a spring and early fall construction. We authorized the purchase of playground equipment back on March 17th, and tonight we did the pads that are safe for the children that go underneath that playground. The playground installation is expected this spring, and the shelter, which is part of the project, has the longest lead time and is on order. It is scheduled to arrive to be installed in the fall. This project is mostly funded by a federal year 2020 Small Cities ADA grant. So we're happy that we're getting a lot of help from the state, federal, and the county on a lot of our projects now. The replacement and improvement of the wind-damaged property at our Little League field has commenced. We've received a settlement check from our insurance carrier for the reimbursement of the wind-damaged structures, including the visitors' dugout, the concession stand, part of the field house, and the batting cages. We do expect to play ball this season. However, it will be with some constraints because we won't be able to get this project over the finish line in time for all of it. The first phase, which will commence, was demolition, and then the replacement of the visitors' dugout and concession stand is taking place right now, along with the batting cages. The replacement of sheathing and siding on the press box is also taking place. So that will get us through this season and the spring, and hopefully get us to be able to open for the season. And then in the fall, we'll come back and do improvements to the bathrooms in next to the concession stand, in the field house, and a new home team dugout will be constructed at that time. We continue to work with DEP and the United States Army Corps on their Hereford Inlet to Cape May Inlet Dune and Beach project, and expect that construction will take place in 2022 to 2023. We have submitted comments on the necessary state aid agreements to the Division of Coastal Engineering, and we still await the final document based on our comments. A PDF will be available on our website in the near future for the public to view on that project. We've continued to work with Cape May County's engineer and professionals on design elements and improvements to the New Jersey Avenue project. Another stakeholder meeting is being planned for May, and we'll be keeping you posted on that. I'm very happy to report that we authorized tonight the purchase of additional beach boxes for the upcoming bathing season. An additional 50 boxes will be purchased. Right now, last year we purchased an additional 46 boxes, which they're double units, which would equate to 96 total rentals. This year we put aside some money to purchase an additional 50 boxes or 50 units, which is a total of 100 rentals. And the Recreation Department will provide ample notice to the public on a release date for those boxes in terms of this summer's rental season. So that's great. And one last thing that I didn't put on my written report, but I wanted to give a shout out to Francine Springer, Eric Wong, and Bob Osborne for their efforts in a huge cost-saving initiative in our telephone system. We had an antiquated phone system here that we recently updated, and along with that, we eliminated some cell phones that were no longer needed. So the bottom line is they saved the borough through their efforts, a total of $20,000. Really, if you looked at it, it could be a $40,000 savings, but we saved a tremendous amount of money and got a much more efficient service, and I think it'll show and reflect in our customer service to the public. So I wanted to give them a shout out because they worked very hard on this, and they're constantly looking for ways to save money, like our copiers. But this one in particular was a very difficult thing to do. It involved a lot of moving parts, and they did an excellent job in saving the taxpayers' money.
That conversation that was had many years ago, so thank you, Francine and team. at that time. Okay, any questions for our administrator from the governing body?
No.
Any questions for our administrator from the public?
David Williams, 8107. Do we have a maximum number of beach boxes that we're thinking about putting out on the beach?
Well, the way we've looked at it so far, we can't meet the demand. So we had 200 people that were turned away this last time during our last opening of the beach boxes. So we would like to have been able to get everyone a beach box and to meet that demand, but we're unable to because we have a lot of constraints. The Department of Corrections makes the beach boxes for us, and right now with COVID, they've been shut down, and they have a limited capacity in how many they can build. That coupled with the increase in lumber was a problem this year. I think we're getting close to meeting the demands of the public, and I think based on what we see in this next round, that would help me to speak with the governing body and determine what that final number would be. Right now, we still can't even come close to the demand, so we've been adding, but I think there'll be a tipping point where we'll surely cut it off.
So the new boxes bring our total to how many?
I don't know the answer to that question off the top of my head, but I will get back to you on that.
300.
Well, or each is ballpark.
It's an odd number.
Like
Yeah,
350,
Yeah, 300.
but they're 350, but they're double boxes, so cut that number in half.
Right.
350.
That's an estimate.
Yes, that's fine. So we're going to have
175?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'm just trying to get a feel.
They're double units.
Yeah, I understand your concern, and that's not
Yep.
the first time. If the concern is how many
How
boxes
too
can we
many.
keep putting out there, I think we're getting real close
Yeah.
to that amount. Yeah, I think so.
And we also have to permit to put them on the beach. We have to get a DEP permit, which we have done. So we have to be careful how many we put and how much we get permitted for.
Okay. I'm just,
We don't have an exact number in mind.
no, well, you know,
It's rough.
I mean, we have 400 people on boxes this year,
Mhm.
and now you got another 200 in demand.
Right.
Okay, the more they're there, the more people are gonna, I suspect your demand's gonna continue to go up, is my point. And at what point in time do you say, meh, no more?
Right, I agree. Yep. I think, I know that's I guess that's a question that we're gonna have to ask at some point, but I know that we're getting, from my personal stand, I know we're getting close. I've not the first time that I've heard that, but I think when we sold out less than 2
5
minutes.
minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, people were making payments, and it was just crazy. But at the end of the day, I think you're right. We have to be careful with polluting the beach too much with the boxes now. I think that's the best way to sum around. Okay, any other questions for our administrator? All right, moving on. Engineers report, Mr. de Blasio.
So my report's Connie's report. Pretty thorough report. I don't have any updates relative to grant applications, but several on capital projects. As was mentioned, the permit for the borough's beach CAFRA Phase 2 was issued on March 17th. This will permit the construction of all street end bump outs south of Rambler Road, bike path widening, and the extension of the 6 ocean storm sewer outfalls. Next, the Sunrise Park Playground and Splash Park improvements are substantially complete. The Splash Park color coding and fencing will be completed in April of this year. The contractor for the Pacific Avenue and Berry Street improvement contract is continuing to progress very well. Specifically, all utility work on Pacific Avenue has been completed, which is great work. We've completed our part of the bargain, and we've gotten out of the way for the county. Contractor is currently working on Washington Avenue and is projected to have all the utility work completed by April 15th. And bearing any unforeseen issues, they should have that road totally done by the middle of June. The final paving of Hollywood Avenue is scheduled for Friday, April 2nd. The contractor has also completed all work on Ocean Avenue for the Pan American Hotel, and the final paving is scheduled for April 1st, which is tomorrow. The reconstruction of the Von Savage Pool parking lot, which consists of removal of the existing concrete parking surface and replacement with hot mix asphalt, is scheduled to start the week of April 12th. Will approximately take 2 weeks to complete. Next, as Connie had mentioned, Higbee Field Little League Improvements Phase 1 has started construction, and that project is being processed on an expedited basis to get open for baseball. The contractor for the reconstruction of Beach Avenue and Stanton Road is currently working on the utility improvements on Stanton Road. Bearing any unforeseen problems, Stanton Road should be completed in its entirety before the summer season. The second part of that contract, which is the improvements of Beach Avenue, are scheduled to start in the fall of this year. So that contractor is going very aggressive at Stanton Road, and they're going to swing for the fence and try to get it all done before middle of June. As mentioned by Connie as well, the playground installation component to Scoop Taylor Park is still scheduled to be completed before the summer season, and the remaining components of that project will be completed in the fall. And lastly, the bid opening for the Beach Street End Public Access Improvements Phase 1 was yesterday, and the low bidder is F. Chavone Construction in the amount of $1,250,022.60. That number is further broken down into a borough portion, which is $1,108,159, and a Wildwood Water Utility portion of $141,863.60. With the approval of the contract tonight by the commissioners, we will move that project into pre-construction and construction as soon as possible. We anticipate that the contractor will probably complete two to four street ends in that contract before the summer season, depending upon materials and weather, and then we'll demobilize for the summer, come back in the fall to finish up the rest of the contract. That is my report.
Governing body, any questions for Mr. de Blasio?
Not this time.
Just on number 6, on the Scoop Tower Park renovations. So that project could very well, probably will go into June. But the idea would be with the new playground at Sunrise Park, we can, hopefully folks can use that park while Scoop Taylor Park is under construction. I think we're going to do our level best to try to have it done. You know, may go into June, hopefully by the end of June for sure. But if it looks like it's going to go into the busiest part of summer, then we'll probably punt and come back to it in the fall. Fair statement, Mr. de Blasio?
That is fair.
Okay. All right. Public, any questions for Mr. de Blasio?
The $1.2 million that covers the bump outs for the street end, that's the showers for the entire borough?
Now,
Or
that's
just Rambler South?
That was for, so the DEP permits for Rambler South, let's call that number 20, I think there's 22 street ends. Phase 1 is 10 street ends. So that's what this contract is.
Okay.
And they're the 10 street ends from the southernmost part of the borough forward. And I believe the bid that we awarded was for 7 of those 10 because of the cost factor.
Because of the alternate, yeah.
Correct, yep.
Okay. They're obviously multi-year then.
Yes.
Yeah, easily was phase 2. It may be like a phase 2A based on how wood prices have gone up.
Thank you.
And that's the Connie referenced the 2 grants, the open space, which we're going to go before them in April, and then also the DCA
Small Cities
Communities Block Grant.
Yeah,
That's
and
400.
those grant requests are pretty large, so hopefully we're going to knock it out of the
Yeah,
park.
initial reaction from both those seems positive.
So that offsets the $1 million that's the borough's piece right
It
now?
would offset a significant portion
not all,
of the
yes.
remaining street ends.
The remaining streets.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yep.
Public, any other questions for Mr. de Blasio? Hearing none, we're going to move on. Correspondence, I believe we all received emails, I believe since we had talked about the new marijuana laws and some of the prohibition discussion that is now in the planning board's hands. There were two that we received, which wanted to make sure that Wildwood Crest was doing what it could do to not allow sales and/or any participation in engaging in smoking marijuana on the beaches and in public spaces. I think we reassured all those folks that that is in fact the case. It's in the planning board's hands now. We're just waiting for their recommendation to Mr. Galzunis's draft ordinance, and then we're looking to take action on that in April. Okay.
On that note, before we move on, we do get some calls and emails pertaining to that, and the number one is the concern of smoking pot on the beach. I do just want to say that this legislation prohibits smoking pot on the beach or in public parks and public areas. So it's already built into the legislation. We're doing our own, we're going to have it here, but the state legislation does not allow smoking pot on the beach. I just want to make that clear, because that seems to be the number one concern. Everybody thinks that we may allow it on the beach, which indeed we wouldn't and won't, but the legislation does not allow it. I just want to be clear with that, people understand that to be the case.
Just to remind everyone, so the Wildwood Crest does allow in designated areas, so we're going to have to pay real close attention as to how difficult enforcement may be if people are going to take advantage of that designated area and perhaps go into that. So we may want to reconsider or revisit that at some point, but let's keep an eye on it. And Chief, we're going to be probably relying on you and Buddy Johnson and the recreation team for recommendations and what they're seeing. Okay, and I guess this is probably not a good time to mention it, but I'll mention it anyway. So we're talking about marijuana. So Wildwood Crest did receive the New Jersey Healthy Town Award for 2020. So congratulations to the recreation team and all the staff and vacationers and our residents for supporting the program. That is a very nice award. There'll probably be a banner or a sign put up somewhere in the municipality as soon as recreation gets a chance to coordinate that. All right. Under discussion, new business, I don't see anything mentioned. Under old business, I do not see anything there. Right, marijuana, we talked about that. Everything else is just in the holding pattern, in the queue pattern. Everybody have anything under old or new? Any comments you'd like to make?
No, this time.
Hearing nothing, I would move that we adjourn.
You saw the
Public
public
comment period.
Sorry.
Public comment.
I got two. I want to take you back, if I could, to the rates and fees schedule for tennis and pickleball courts. Season pass for a resident, 4 people play in, 1 pass is needed? Or do all 4 people have to pay?
No, that's actually for the, so we don't charge for that. It's for the people who want to put on pickleball tournaments for profit.
Okay.
So if they want to rent the courts.
All right, so I can just go up and use the court again?
Yeah, no,
That's
you
correct.
can use.
Fair enough, okay. And just a question about beach tags. I see things in the Herald, other perks, you know. Are we talking beach tags? Obviously, it's an island-wide thing, okay? Where do the commissioners stand on beach tags and any discussion at this point?
I've always been a proponent of beach tags, especially last summer, because what we saw with the pandemic and the $600 that people got, it was really an awful summer down here with how they came, the people. You know, we're used to quiet. You know, we're no liquor, we're no smoking. You know, those are all drugs. But I've always felt that we were missing out, not so much on the money, but it just, the residents, I think a lot of the residents really prefer a beach tag to not having one. I'm one of those that have always felt that way, but that's just me. And we are talking, but it's going to take a while. If we go island-wide, it has to be a long discussion, and it will be a long discussion.
Okay. Mr. Thompson?
I've never really been a proponent of the beach fees. I'm more a proponent of less government. And it's just one more thing that the government is charging us for. We pay enough everywhere. And I feel that we shouldn't have to pay to use the beach. My thought is it should be picked up by the state, federal, county, since it is listed as state parks. We should be getting state and federal help since they want us to man the beach with lifeguards. We're responsible insurance-wise. We're liable. It's just one more thing. I do agree with Joyce, so it's going to take a lot of talk. There is talk going on with the other towns. We have to see how it plays out. It's got to be together. I mean, I've got an email sitting here that I just got the other day saying no beach fees. There's probably just as many people against it as there are for it in the emails that I see or get or talk to on the street. I just think you're paying enough. You're paying enough for taxes and everything else you do. It's just, to me, it's another tax. And I hate to see it. That being said, we're going to have a problem if the other two communities want it, so we have to see how the negotiations go. Personally, I've really never been for it. I see it as another tax, and I think we are taxed to death, and I think there's too much going on in our life already. So I'm not a proponent of one more thing. They're just coming after you for more money.
Have we ever done a cost analysis? Obviously, you bring in money for the fees, but then you've got costs for people at the end of the street, inspection,
I'll give you the, so being the one, we were in the initial conversations, I think at the end of the summer last year. So I'm going to give you two different perspectives. First perspective is, as I sit here in this seat, it's no secret that the cost to maintain the beaches is very expensive. Cost of labor goes up, cost of equipment goes up, cost of fuel, you name it, all that goes up. And right now, all that cost is 100% on the borough taxpayers, hotels, motels, residential owners, vacation owners, all that. That said, Wildwood Crest beaches, as well as Wildwoods, have been free for a very, very long time, forever, right? So as soon as you change the personality of the Wildwoods, I think we have to be really careful, right? So we're coming off of a pandemic year. I don't know, when that right time would be. It's going to take a lot of discussion, but it really comes down to, in my mind, is what is the numbers. Wildwood Crest receives roughly $300,000 a year from the Tourism Authority as part of the room tax and the TDF fees that are collected and administered by the state. They pass back down to the Tourism Authority, which in turn they pay Wildwood Crest. So right off the bat, if beach fees were to be instituted, we would lose $300,000. The management payroll, as well as the actual folks that actually would do the beach tagging and all the materials and so forth, I think we estimated anywhere between $350,000 to $450,000. So we're going to need $750,000 to $800,000 just to break even. Now you guys start drilling into the detailed conversation is once people buy their tags, I mean, where is the borough going to make their money? Probably on the folks that are paying daily or weekly and so forth, and then you're really hitting the hotel guests and or the either vacation guests of privately owned homes. Can we make up that $800,000? That's a big risk, and that's the big unknown that I don't think we have the answer for. There was some initial conversation with the other municipalities about making the tags reciprocal. That also would potentially hurt gross revenue sales for Wildwood Crest. So in other words, if you buy one in Wildwood or North Wildwood, you won't have to buy one here in Wildwood Crest. So there's another concern. So to Joyce's point, yeah, there's a lot of conversation, but I think we collectively agreed that discussion, it's our job to put all the information out in front of the public before they, and then I think we all, unofficially agree that the public through a voting referendum would make that decision. I don't think anybody here would want to put themselves in that position. Allow the taxpayers to weigh in on it and let them hear the pros and the cons. There's pros and cons on both sides. Personally, I like our beaches being free. However, I do get the number side, and the only way to offset that would be with the cost of the fee. Because at the end of the day, our cost to maintain those beaches, I think we did an analysis, I think it was like $1.5 to $6 million. If that number starts shooting up with minimum wage increases starting to go up and trying to get more staff, and now that 1.6 is now 3 to 3.5 million, now we have to start talking and start looking at this. That's the balance that we're trying to find.
And I understand what he's saying, but down here, as far as beach fees go, in the state of New Jersey, it's Strathmere, which beach is the size of a postage stamp, Atlantic City, and the Wildwoods. Everybody else has had beach fees for years, and it has seemed to work out, as well as making some residual money that goes back into the till, so to speak. I'm one of these people, I like the money to come back in, instead of it all going out. So as Don said, that it's talking points, and that's what we'll have to do, and it might take a couple of years. Mm-hmm. Never know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh. Okay, anybody else? Any public comments? Last round of public comments. Hearing none, anybody on the call have any public comments? I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.